My sister destroyed my relationship because she couldn't have her one true love, so I made her watch him fall for me instead.
My little sister wrecked my relationship just because she couldn't have the guy she called her soulmate, so I made sure she had to sit back and watch him fall for me instead. Ever since Brooke turned 21, she's been leaning on the same excuse like it's some kind of life pass. She says she lost her one true love, and somehow that gives her permission to torch everyone else's happiness. And no, I'm not talking about some cutesy, still hung up on my ex kind of drama. I'm saying if you've got a good thing going, Brooke will find a way to ruin it, and then she'll chalk it all up to her tragic love story. That so-called great love? Some dude named Luke she met at a college party 4 years ago. They had a one-night stand, he ghosted her, and somehow that one forgettable hookup turned into her origin story for being a complete train wreck of a person. It started with her childhood best friend, Jess. The two of them had been close since kindergarten. One weekend, Brooke stayed over at Jess's place. By Monday morning, Jess's boyfriend was suddenly texting Brooke, "Good morning," like it was normal. And when Jess walked in on them tangled up in her own bed, Brooke actually had the nerve to say, "You don't know what it's like to lose your soulmate." Jess never spoke to her again after that. Then there was our cousin's engagement party. Brooke rolled in wearing a dress that probably cost more than my entire month's rent. She downed way too much wine, cornered the groom in the bathroom, and made things weird. Later, the guy told us she kept saying he reminded her of someone she used to love. Thankfully, he had enough sense to shove her away and tell his fiancée the truth right away. But as for Brooke, she went straight to our parents, bawling about how seeing happy couples triggered her emotional wounds. And Mom? She actually booked her a weekend at a fancy spa to help her heal. So by the time I met Travis, I already knew exactly how things could go down. I kept him away from family get-togethers, wiped Brooke off my socials, and gave him a vague story about how she was dealing with some personal stuff and needed space. That little strategy worked for 2 years. We got engaged last spring. Nothing huge, just a small ceremony with close friends. But I made one slip up. I brought it up during Mom's birthday dinner. As soon as I said the word engaged, Brooke's eyes lit up like she just hit the jackpot. "I'm so happy for you," she said, wrapping me in one of her fake sweet hugs. Then came the kicker. "When do I get to meet him?" A week later, Travis showed me his phone and laughed. "Your sister found me on Instagram using some obviously fake account. Look at these messages." We scrolled through them together, making fun of how desperate she sounded, and he said he'd block her right away. Problem solved, so I thought. 3 weeks before the wedding, I came down with the brutal flu. Travis had plans to spend the day at his brother's golf tournament, so I stayed home to rest. But a friend of mine, who happened to live near Brooke's apartment complex, texted me something that made my blood run cold. She said she spotted Travis's Tesla parked in the visitor's spot outside Brooke's place. I didn't want to believe it, but my gut said otherwise. Fever or not, I jumped in my car and drove straight there. I still had the emergency key Brooke gave me, so I let myself in. And there they were, on her couch. Brooke's head was resting in Travis's lap, his hand tangled in her hair. Both of them half-dressed. Her eyes met mine, already brimming with crocodile tears. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "He just reminds me so much of Luke." I walked out. Travis didn't even bother to chase after me. That was the moment I decided she was finally going to learn what it meant to lose something that mattered. See, Luke wasn't just some vague memory from a party. I'd actually followed him on Instagram for about 3 years. We had a few college friends in common. We'd occasionally like each other's posts, but that was about it. No real conversations. He lived about 3 hours away, worked as a physical therapist, and regularly posted videos of his golden retriever. He seemed normal, kind, out of Brooke's league. So I slid into his DMs. I sent him a message that said, "Hey, this might sound weird, but my sister had a thing for you back in college and just wrecked my wedding. Wanna help me ruin her life?" 12 minutes later, he replied, "Brooke? The girl who showed up at my mom's house? I'm in." Turns out Brooke had driven all the way to Luke's hometown and introduced herself to his mother like they were old friends. She told some twisted story about how she and Luke were star-crossed lovers kept apart by fate. Poor woman believed every word. She even invited Brooke in for tea. They took selfies together, and Brooke posted one with the caption, "Reuniting with my dear future mother-in-law." Luke sent me everything, screenshots, video clips, even a voice message from his mom saying, "She seemed so sincere, dear. I didn't mean to cause any trouble." That's when it really hit me. Brooke didn't understand love. She only understood control. If she couldn't have something, she had to break it. But this time, she didn't count on two things. I wasn't the pushover sister anymore, and Luke? He was ready to play. We planned everything down to the last detail. Luke would come visit on the weekend of our family lunch. I hadn't spoken to Brooke since catching her with Travis, but I knew she'd show up. It was our dad's birthday, and nobody missed that kind of thing. As for me, I'd show up holding Luke's hand, laughing like we'd been in love for years. Friday afternoon, I picked him up at the bus station. He was even better in person, charming, easy to talk to, with that kind of quiet confidence that makes people pay attention. Brooke never had a chance with someone like him. And Luke knew it. In the car, we went over everything, what to say, how to act, even a few stories to make it look real. Then Saturday came. Right at 1 p.m., we pulled up in front of my parents' house. I stepped out wearing a new dress, heels, and a smile I hadn't worn in weeks. Luke held my hand like we'd been together forever. We walked in. Brooke was laughing with my uncle in the living room when she saw us. Her laughter died instantly. "Everyone," I said like it was no big deal. "This is Luke." Just hearing his name knocked the wind out of her. She turned pale. Then flushed red. Then forced a shaky smile. "Luke," she said, fake laughing. "Wow, what a surprise." He gave her a polite little nod. "Hi, Brooke. Good to see you again." That was it. Whatever grip she thought she had on the situation? Gone. She tried to say something else, but I was already snapping selfies with Luke, posting to my story, acting like the happiest woman in the room. Every time I smiled, it cut her a little deeper. During lunch, she kept trying to drag Luke into some made-up college memory that clearly never happened. But he didn't take the bait. He just kept looking at me, calling me love, wrapping his arm around my shoulders like we'd been a thing forever. And every single time he did, I watched Brooke clench her jaw like she was trying to chew glass. After the birthday toast, she hit her limit. She stormed off and locked herself in the bathroom. So I followed her. Knocked on the door until she finally opened it. "What do you want now?" she asked, her mascara smudged and her eyes begging for mercy. "I just came to check if you're alright," I said, wearing a mask of concern. "I mean, it's gotta be rough watching your so-called soulmate in your sister's arms, huh? You're only doing this to hurt me," she snapped. "Oh, you mean like how you wrecked my engagement because you couldn't stand the thought of me being happy?" I shot back. "No, Brooke. This right here? This is just called payback. He was mine," she screamed, slamming her fist into the wall. "I saw him first. I felt it first." "No, Brooke," I said calmly. "You saw him one time. And he didn't want you. You built some fantasy in your head and used it as a reason to treat people like garbage." I leaned in slightly. "But now you get to sit there and watch him love someone else, me? And you know what? I didn't have to throw myself at him or make up stories to get there." She crumpled to the floor, bawling loud enough for the whole house to hear. Mom came knocking on the door, her voice worried. "Is everything alright in there?" I opened the door, head high, not even looking back. Back in the living room, I slid into my seat next to Luke. He leaned in, pressed a kiss to my forehead, and whispered, "She's really going to spiral now." I smiled. "Bring it on. I've never felt more ready." The fallout came quick. The very next morning, Mom called me sounding stressed. She said Brooke had cried all night, and that she was in a delicate place emotionally. Mom asked me to show a little compassion. "Compassion?" I repeated, letting out a bitter laugh. "You really think me showing up with my boyfriend at a family lunch is provoking? Or is it just that Brooke can't handle anyone being happy unless she's in the spotlight?" Mom let out a sigh like I was the issue. "Sweetheart, your sister has a tender heart. She falls hard." I cut her off. "Tender heart? Mom, she slept with my fiancé. She trashed my wedding like it meant nothing." I paused, letting the silence hit. I was alone, sick, and she was cuddled up with him on her couch reminiscing about a guy she barely knew. "Don't you dare flip this on me. Maybe we should talk later," she mumbled, and then hung up. That's when it finally sunk in. Nobody in that house was ever going to defend me. They treated Brooke like she was some shattered piece of glass, always fragile, never responsible. But they ignored the sharp edges. The ones that cut. And now, those edges were slicing into her. That Monday, Luke was still in town. So I figured, why not show him off a little more? I took him out to brunch with a group of my girlfriends, women who'd known Brooke and all her stunts since we were teenagers. Luke was a total knockout. Polite, respectful, with that natural charm that made people stop and stare. And the way he treated me? Like I was the only woman in the room. The girls caught on quick. They exchanged those knowing looks, a few even whispering, "This is the most beautiful revenge I've ever seen." But the real fireworks came later that afternoon. Luke posted a picture of us at the park, arms wrapped around each other, both smiling like a scene from a rom-com. The caption was simple. "Sometimes love finds you when you least expect it." At first, the comments were light. A cousin. An old classmate. Heart emojis. Smiley faces. But then Brooke showed up. Her handle, Kmia. Soulmate commented, "This is disgusting. You know what he means to me." Luke didn't miss a beat. He liked her comment. Then replied, sharp and direct. "We hooked up one time, Brooke. Just once. And the next day, you followed me down the street. That's not love. That's obsession." Boom. Mic drop. Within the hour, the post was making waves. People we hadn't spoken to in years were chiming in. Old classmates. Family friends. One even wrote. Finally someone said it. "I always thought she was acting weird about that guy. Karma always circles back." Brooke stayed quiet on the post itself, but she lit up my WhatsApp with voice messages. Crying. Screaming. Saying I had turned Luke into a weapon against her. One of the messages ended with her sobbing. "You're ruining my life just to get revenge." I sent back one simple text. "No. I'm just showing you what it looks like to rise after being broken. Something you've never learned how to do." Then I blocked her. No warning. No fanfare. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I knew Brooke wouldn't give up that easily. And sure enough, by Thursday night she made her next move. She posted a selfie, messy hair, puffy eyes, the kind of lighting that screams, "Feel sorry for me." The caption? "It hurts when your own sister steals the man you love. When she mocks your pain and people cheer her on. I know I'm not perfect, but no one deserves this." Over 1,000 likes. Tons of comments rolled in. "Stay strong. Sending love. You'll get through this." And what stung the most? Some of those comments were from people I thought were close to me. The next morning, I drove over to my parents' house. Mom opened the door, startled. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to everyone," I said, brushing past her. Dad was in the living room. Brooke came downstairs dressed like she was heading to a funeral, sweatpants, hair pulled back, sad eyes. That innocent little "I'm the one hurting" act. "Something wrong?" she asked, all sugar and guilt. "Yeah, something's wrong," I said, stopping right in the center of the room. "You've been playing the victim card for too long, Brooke, and it ends today." I turned toward our parents. "Mom. Dad. Did you see her post? Do you honestly believe that's fair? Do you even remember who ruined whose engagement?" "Honey, this isn't the right way," Mom started. "No. This time you're going to listen." I looked Brooke in the eye. "You seduced Travis. You shattered everything I built. Then you gave me a half-hearted apology with fake tears, and expected to still be treated like the golden child. Well, guess what? That story's over. Now you're the one crumpled on the floor, crying, and no one's going to rescue you this time. A sad selfie won't erase the screenshots. Or the messages. Or the people who now know exactly who you are. The mask's off, Brooke." She didn't say a word. Just sat there, sobbing. Dad looked away, avoiding my eyes. "I'm done being the forgotten one while you steal the spotlight with your little pity shows." I turned to walk out. The stage is mine now. And the audience? They're finally on my side. I didn't wait for a response. Outside, Luke was already in the car. The radio was playing low, and he had my favorite coffee waiting in the cup holder. "So?" he asked. "It was perfect," I told him. "She finally realized she's not in control anymore." He grinned. "Revenge on her was actually kind of therapeutic, huh?" "Definitely," I said, sipping my coffee. "But you know what's even better?" "What?" "Part 2 hasn't even started yet." And that's how Part 2 began, with an invitation. My friend Andre was throwing a launch party for his new restaurant. He's a well-known chef in the area, and the event was packed with influencers and media. Which, of course, made it Brooke's dream scene. She lived for this kind of thing, pretending she had a lifestyle that never actually existed. Posting photos from fitting rooms, acting like she owned the clothes. Ordering fancy food just to snap a pic and send the dish back untouched. It was always about the look. The illusion. But this time, she wasn't invited. I was. And so was Luke. We made quite the entrance that night, literally stepped in on the right foot. A photographer at the door stopped us for pictures, and one of them ended up on a local event page with the caption, "Couple of the moment. Melissa and Luke steal the spotlight on opening night." That's what it said. And of course, Brooke saw it the very next day. She posted one of her trademark passive-aggressive stories. Something like, "Some people need the spotlight to feel alive. I prefer depth." Depth? Really? From someone who threw herself into my fiancé's lap just 3 weeks before my wedding? And now she's out here weeping online because the guy she barely knew turned out to be my boyfriend. Then came another event the following Saturday, Amanda's wedding. She's our cousin. Now, Brooke and Amanda had always been tight. I'm sure Brooke hoped Amanda would smooth things over, maybe even ask me not to bring Luke. But instead, Amanda called me personally. She said, "Mel, please come. And bring him. Everyone already knows the story, and I'm done pretending for Brooke's sake. She's gotta learn the world doesn't revolve around her." Brooke showed up alone, squeezed into a dress that was way too tight. Her makeup was perfect. Her smile looked fake, like it had been laminated on. She acted like she didn't even see us when we walked in. Luke wrapped his arm around my waist, kissed me on the cheek here and there, and all she could do was watch. But the real moment, the one that made the whole night worth it, came during the bride and groom's first dance. Amanda quietly waved us over to join them on the floor. Luke and I stepped into the center, spinning slowly, lost in the moment. That's when Brooke tried to slip in. And for once, she didn't have her usual armor on. "Luke, can I talk to you?" she asked, with that look she always thought would melt any guy. Luke let go of my hand, looked her straight in the eye, and calmly said, "No. I'm busy loving your sister." Brooke froze. I exhaled slowly, turned to her and added, "And for the first time in years, I'm actually being loved, really loved." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You wouldn't understand that. You've always confused love with attention." She staggered back 2 steps, eyes full of tears, and ended up tripping on the hem of her dress. No one laughed. Worse, everyone just ignored her. That stung more than any insult. A few minutes later, she slipped out of the venue quietly. And me? I stayed right there, dancing. For the first time in ages, I actually felt like the one who'd won. But the best part hadn't even happened yet. A few weeks later, I got invited to speak on a podcast about healing and fresh starts. I never mentioned any names. But I shared my story. About the self-centered sister. The cheating fiancé. The careful revenge. And, unexpectedly, the kind of love I never saw coming. That episode took off like wildfire. People from all over started messaging me, saying thank you, saying they saw themselves in my story. And Brooke? I know she listened. Because later that same day, she sent me a message. "Do you really have to put yourself out there just for applause?" I didn't hesitate. I wrote back. "It's not about applause. It's about freedom. I lived in your theater for years. Now it's my story. My stage." She never replied. A few days later, I heard through the grapevine that Brooke had started withdrawing from things. A brand she was hoping to collaborate with cut ties. People had begun whispering about her weird obsession with Luke. The perfect image she worked so hard to create, filters and inspirational quotes and all, started to fall apart. And I didn't even have to lift a finger. She did it to herself. As for me, I just kept living my life. Luke wasn't just part of my payback anymore. He'd become something much more. He was comfort. Support. He'd shown up dressed as an accomplice but turned out to be the one who stayed. And every day, I noticed something, what Brooke tried so hard to destroy. It was making me stronger. And her, she who always tried to win through control in games, she was left with nothing but silence. The first time I realized I hadn't thought about Travis in weeks was one quiet morning, sometime after Amanda's wedding. We were in my apartment. Sunlight pouring through the windows. Luke was in the kitchen, shirtless, flipping pancakes like he'd done since week 1. He was humming some throwback tune from the 2000s and doing silly dances that made me laugh out loud. And right then, it hit me, Travis had become nothing more than a dusty memory in the back of my mind. This wasn't about revenge anymore. Not even close. It was about Luke holding my hand even when no one was watching. It was how he listened to every one of my childhood stories like they were new, even though he'd heard them all. It was the way he'd look at me while I was curled up on the couch with a book, like I was the only thing in the world he needed. None of that was what I expected. When I sent him that impulsive message, I thought he'd help me crush Brooke's fantasy, pretend for a bit, and then we'd both move on. But life didn't go back to how it was. Luke became part of my routine. My world. He met my friends, fit right into my work life, even started leaving his toothbrush and t-shirts at my place. When my car died on me, he was there with a coffee in one hand and a tow truck on the way. When I had a panic attack the night before a big presentation, he sat with me on the kitchen floor, holding my hand in silence until I could breathe again. And Travis? Not a single thought. No comparisons. Nothing. The man who once meant everything now meant nothing. Because Luke, he was here on the ordinary days. Travis was all about promises that never came. Luke was about showing up and following through. One evening we went out to dinner at this new spot in town. Nothing over the top, just good food and a warm vibe. We sat down, and Luke took my hand across the table and said, in that easygoing way of his, "You know what's funny? We started all this to mess with your sister, but I never once faked it." My heart skipped a beat. I paused, then smiled, almost shy. "I'm not pretending anymore either." He laughed and raised his wine glass. "To the best revenge, then?" I shook my head. "No. To what comes after revenge." We clinked glasses. And for the first time in a long while, I felt calm. No bitterness. No ghosts from the past chasing me. No craving for attention or validation. I was simply there, for myself. And so was he. A few days later, walking through downtown, I saw Travis. He was by himself, walking with his head low like the world was just too much. I turned my head without thinking. Not because it hurt to see him, because it didn't matter anymore. He noticed me. Paused. Hesitated. He almost walked over to talk, but when he saw Luke reach me and gently lace his fingers through mine, he took a step back. Maybe, for the first time, he realized he had no place here anymore. That the space he had once filled with half-truths and silence was now taken by someone who gave me everything, without making any promises at all. That night, I held Luke a little closer than usual. And without even thinking, I whispered, "Thanks for showing up." He gave me that calm, reassuring smile that said more than words ever could. Even in the quiet, I understood what he meant. Getting revenge gave me the justice I needed, but it was everything that came after that gave me something deeper: love. The months rolled on. What started as a sharp-tongued response to my sister's venom somehow turned into the sweetest chapter of my life. Luke was no longer just a strategy, or a well-timed reaction. He became something else entirely. He became home. He was the one I shared both my quiet and my laughter with. Most nights, we'd fall asleep side by side, sometimes in my place, sometimes at his. His golden retriever insisted on curling up right between us, like a loyal little guardian of this unexpected story. Luke officially asked me to be his girlfriend on a regular, no-frills night. We were sitting on the couch, eating pizza straight from the box, half watching a goofy documentary about sea creatures. "Do you think this is too soon?" he asked, balancing the box on his lap with a shy grin playing on his lips. "Or maybe too late?" I laughed. "Honestly, I think we've already survived tougher stuff than couples who've been together 20 years. It's just a label," I added. "But yeah, I'm in." And that was it. We moved forward. We didn't bring up Brooke anymore. She stopped showing up in our conversations. Vanished from our feeds. Stopped sending messages. She blocked Luke on everything. Not that he ever reached out. She told mutual friends she'd never forgive me. That I stole the love of her life just to rub her nose in something she couldn't have. Of course, she left out the part where she'd torn my wedding apart long before any of this happened. But honestly, I stopped caring. In the beginning, I thought it would eat me up inside. That I'd stay stuck on the fact she never took responsibility. That I'd keep hoping for an apology that would never come. But the truth is, the freedom I found the moment I let go of needing Brooke's approval, that was the real gift in all that chaos. She didn't forgive me. She skipped my birthday. Ignored my mom's invites for the holidays. She stayed distant. Bitter. Angry. And me? I kept moving forward. Luke and I took a trip to the countryside. I got to officially meet his mom this time. I even helped paint the walls at his new clinic. I learned to deal with his rowdy, lovable dog. And little by little, we created a life that felt easy. Honest. Real. No pretending. No games. One afternoon, we were lying side by side in the hammock, just soaking in the breeze and the birdsong, when he turned and asked, "Do you still think all this started out as revenge?" I paused for a bit before turning my face toward him with a smile. "Maybe it did in the beginning," I said. "But it ended up being the best thing I've ever done for myself." He leaned in and kissed my forehead. And we stayed quiet for a while. That's how it happened, revenge turned into love. And honestly, I think that's what stung Brooke the most. She always needed to be the main act. The prettiest. The one everyone wanted. She had to be the center of attention. But it was away from her spotlight, off her carefully written stage, that I finally found what she spent her whole life faking. I was never the golden child in our family. Never the favorite. Never the sister everyone looked up to. But I was the one who figured out how to turn my pain into something powerful. I learned how to take rejection and turn it into freedom. And how to turn revenge into love. That's something no one can take from me. 6 months went by, and just when I thought the storms had all passed, I got a phone call I didn't expect. It was Travis. I ignored it the first time. Then again when he called back. The third time, Luke was sitting beside me and said quietly, "Pick it up. You need closure." I answered. Kept my voice steady. "Hello? Melissa, it's me." His voice sounded worn out. Like all the fight had left him. Can I talk to you? Face to face?" I almost hung up. But Luke was right. There was something still lingering that needed to be put to rest. We agreed to meet at a little cafe, someplace neutral, with no memories tied to it. When I walked in, he was already there. His hair was a mess. Dark circles under his eyes. It looked like life had aged him fast. "Thanks for coming," he said, eyes still avoiding mine. "What do you want, Travis?" He let out a long, shaky breath. "I wanted to apologize." "Really? And explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "That you were cozying up to my sister 3 weeks before our wedding? It wasn't like that," he mumbled. She came to me while you were sick. Said she had something important to tell me, something about you. That there were things from your past I needed to know before I married you." My stomach twisted into a knot. "Classic Brooke," I muttered. "And you just believed her?" "She brought proof. Or at least stuff that looked like proof. She claimed you had ruined someone's life back in high school. That you were manipulative. That you held grudges. She showed me old messages, stuff taken totally out of context." He finally looked up at me. I got scared. Confused. "And that's why you ended up in bed with her?" I asked, not hiding the disgust in my voice. "No," he said quickly, shaking his head like he was trying to undo it all. "She told me she'd been in love with me since we met. Said she only kept quiet out of respect for you. That if I called off the wedding, she'd be there for me. I'd been drinking. And everything she said about you had me spinning." "Travis," I cut in. "None of that excuses what you did." "I know." His eyes started to well up. 5 minutes after you walked out, it hit me. I realized she played me. That everything she said was a lie. And that I destroyed the best thing I ever had because of her." I sat there in silence for a long while. "You want to know what hurts the most, Travis?" I finally said. "It's not even what you did. It's that you didn't trust me. After 2 years together, you believed her more than you believed me." He lowered his head. "I tried calling. 100 times. I even went by your place, but you were never there. Then I saw the pictures. You and him. And I knew I'd lost you. You lost me the second you ran your fingers through her hair," I said as I stood up. "But thanks for explaining. It confirms that I made the right decision." He gave me one last look. Are you happy with him?" he asked. For the first time during that whole conversation, I actually smiled. "Happier than I ever thought I could be," I said. Then I walked away. No anger in my heart. Just a quiet understanding that some doors need to shut before new ones can fully open. Talking to my family was tougher. It wasn't until 3 months later that my mom finally called and asked if we could meet. She suggested lunch, just the two of us, to talk things over. When I showed up, I barely recognized her. She looked older somehow. Worn out. Like life had weighed her down a little more. The lines around her eyes had deepened. "How are you?" she asked, a little unsure. "I'm good, Mom. Really good." "And Luke?" she asked. "He's good too. We're both doing well." She nodded, nervously folding and unfolding her napkin. "I owe you an apology," she finally said. "For all the years I just didn't see things clearly." I felt the tightness build in my chest. "Mom?" I said, but she stopped me. "No, let me say this," she replied, looking me straight in the eyes for the first time in a long while. "I always knew Brooke could be difficult. But I thought that if I just gave her more attention, protected her a little more, she might change. And while I was busy doing that, I ignored you. I left you alone to deal with the mess she created. Tears started running down my cheeks. After that day you confronted us, she continued, I started piecing everything together. All the friends Brooke lost. The boyfriends who disappeared. The strange stories that didn't make sense. She paused. I realized you and Brooke were telling me two completely different stories. And I always chose to believe hers. Why? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Because she cried louder. My mom whispered, her voice trembling. Because you always seemed stronger. Like you didn't need anyone. And I confused that strength with not needing love or support. We sat there in silence for a while. Just letting it all sink in. And Brooke? I eventually asked. She moved to another state. She's seeing a therapist now. She said she wants a fresh start, away from all of this. Mom hesitated. She wanted me to tell you that she knows she was wrong. But she's not ready to say sorry. Not yet. Well, I'm not ready to forgive. I said truthfully. Maybe one day. But not right now. I understand. She said softly, reaching across the table. Can I try to be a better mom? To you? I took her hand in mine. We can try to be a better family. I told her. But it's gonna take time. Tears welled up in her eyes as she smiled. I've got time. A few weeks later, my dad showed up at my doorstep. No call, no warning, just standing there with a bouquet of flowers and a nervous look on his face. Can I come in? He asked gently. Of course, Dad, I said. Luke was in the kitchen and gave my dad a polite hello before stepping aside to give us some space. I like him, Dad said, getting straight to the point. Seems like a solid guy. He is. I nodded. I came because your mother said you two talked. And it hit me, I never apologized. Not once. That was surprising. My dad never really talked much, especially not like this. I always knew Brooke caused problems, he admitted. But I thought it wasn't something I had to deal with. I figured it was between the women. That your mom would take care of it. He looked down, shaking his head. But in the end, you both suffered. And you especially. Dad. I began, but he held up a hand. No, sweetheart. Let me finish. He sat on the edge of the sofa, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. I failed you. As a father. I didn't protect you. I didn't guide her. And worst of all, I didn't teach either of you that sisters are supposed to look out for one another, not tear each other down. My throat tightened. I could feel myself getting emotional. Your mom told me about Travis. About what Brooke did to you. He said. If it were me, I don't think I could ever forgive her. But you, somehow, you turned all that pain into something stronger. And I'm proud of you for that. Those were the words I'd been waiting my whole life to hear. Thank you, Dad. Do you think there's still time for me to be a better father? He asked. I smiled through watery eyes. There's always time. Later that night, I told Luke everything. I talked, and he just sat beside me, quietly holding my hand. How do you feel? He asked once I finished. Free. I answered, a little surprised at my own words. Really free. And Brooke? He asked. I thought for a moment. I hope she finds peace. Far from me. But I hope she does. He leaned in, kissed my forehead, and smiled. You're something else, you know that? We are. I corrected him. It's not just me. It's us. And that was the truth. Because in the end, this wasn't about defeating Brooke. It wasn't about revenge or payback. It was about finally understanding that I deserve real love. The kind that protects you. That respects you. That shows up. It was about realizing that family isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stand by you. And most importantly, it was about learning that before you can find the love of your life, you've got to stop settling for scraps from people who never really saw your worth. Now, when I wake up next to Luke, our dog curled up at the foot of the bed, I know one thing for sure. Every struggle was worth it. Because they led me here. To him. To us. To peace.